Once upon a time, in a hidden corner of the world, there lived a man named Elias. He was a brilliant scientist with a deep fascination for the past, so much so that he devoted his life to studying ancient civilizations. Yet, unlike most historians or archaeologists, Elias didn't just want to read about the past. He wanted to experience it firsthand. Years of research led him to an incredible breakthrough. He had invented a time machine. It wasn't sleek or futuristic, but rather a curious contraption of gears, levers, and brass dials. It resembled a large, mechanical sphere, and with its creation, Elias embarked on the most daring adventure of his life. His first stop was ancient Egypt, around 2000 BCE. The sand was hot beneath his feet, and the Great Pyramids rose majestically against the bright blue sky. Elias marveled at the ingenuity of the Egyptians, who had managed to construct such massive structures without the technology of the modern world. He wandered through the bustling streets of Thebes, where merchants sold spices and craftsmen shaped delicate jewelry. But it wasn't just the city that caught his attention. It was the air of mystery that surrounded the place. He visited the temples, where priests performed their sacred rituals, and watched as they painted vivid depictions of the gods on the walls. He couldn't help but feel awestruck by the civilization's devotion to the divine, which seemed to seep into every stone, every structure, and every person. After spending several days absorbing the grandeur of Egypt, Elias set his sights on the ancient city of Rome. It was the height of the Roman Empire, around 100 CE. The city was a thriving metropolis, with grand forums, magnificent palaces, and the imposing Colosseum. Elias stood in awe of the gladiators, who fought for honor and glory in the arena. The roar of the crowds echoed through the city as chariots raced through the streets. Pulled by mighty horses, he wandered through the Roman baths, soaking in the culture and the elegance of a world that was far removed from his own. Elias was particularly fascinated by the Roman Senate, where he observed the debates between senators, their voices loud and impassioned as they discussed the fate of the empire. It struck him how similar their concerns were to the ones he had seen in the future: power, politics, and the struggle for control. He couldn't help but wonder if the rise and fall of empires was an inevitable cycle in history. But it wasn't all grand cities and monuments. His next stop took him to the mysterious civilization of the Maya, somewhere in the dense jungles of Central America, around 300 CE. The air was thick with humidity as Elias stepped out of his time machine, which had disguised itself as a large stone statue. He was awestruck by the towering pyramids and the intricate carvings that decorated the temples. The Mayans, unlike the Romans or Egyptians, had a keen understanding of the stars and the cosmos. Elias spent several weeks with them, learning about their advanced knowledge of astronomy and timekeeping. He watched as they used the movements of the stars to guide their agricultural practices and predict celestial events. The Maya's connection to the heavens fascinated him, and he learned how they believed that time was cyclical, always returning to the beginning. From there, Elias' travels took him to many more places and times: the bustling streets of ancient Athens, the vast libraries of Alexandria, the Great Walls of China during the Qin dynasty. Everywhere he went, Elias was struck by the brilliance of human ingenuity, the depth of culture, and the way each civilization had left its mark on the world. Yet, as Elias continued his journey, he began to notice something unsettling. Though the civilizations were different in their customs and beliefs, they all seemed to share a similar fate. They rose to great heights, only to eventually crumble and fall into obscurity. The Romans grew too powerful and overextended themselves. The Egyptians became divided, and the Mayans, despite their advanced knowledge, faced internal strife. Elias began to question what would happen to his own world, which was so far removed from these ancient times. Would humanity continue to flourish, or would it too one day fall? It was a thought that weighed heavily on him, but it also deepened his resolve to preserve the knowledge and wisdom of the past. Finally, after many years of traveling through time, Elias returned to his own time, the 21st century, but he was not the same man who had left. He now carried with him not only the scientific knowledge of his own era, but also the wisdom of the ancient civilizations he had visited. He became a historian and an advocate for preserving the heritage of the past, always reminding those around him that the rise and fall of civilizations was a cycle that should not be forgotten. Elias knew that history was not just a collection of dates and events, it was a living testament to the human spirit. And in that knowledge, he found peace, knowing that even as the world changed, the stories of those who came before would continue to shape the future.